You really shouldn't keep Marigold's food bowl on the floor like that. She'll develop bad habits. I've raised 3 dogs and I know what I'm talking about." She said it before she even closed the front door behind her. It was 7:52 in the morning. I was still in my robe. My coffee hadn't finished brewing, and my mother-in-law was already inside my house, already moving through my kitchen, already picking up my dog's bowl with 2 fingers like it was a crime scene exhibit. My name is June Calloway. I've been married to my husband for 4 years, and for 3 of those 4 years, his mother. I'll call her my mother-in-law, because that's what she is, that's the whole problem, has treated our home like a project she's been assigned to fix. She has a key. That's where it started. She has a key because 6 months into our marriage, my husband's car broke down on the interstate at 2 in the morning, and she was the one who drove 40 minutes to get him. Afterward, she sat at our kitchen table with her hands wrapped around a mug of tea and said, quietly, almost to herself, "You know, it would just give me peace of mind. Just for emergencies." My husband looked at me. I looked at him. I said sure. I said sure because I was 28 years old and I didn't understand yet that a key isn't just a key to some people. To some people, a key is a declaration. She used it for the first time 3 weeks later. Not an emergency. She'd made a pot of chicken soup because my husband mentioned on the phone that I had a sinus infection. She let herself in, set the pot on the stove, rearranged the contents of my refrigerator to make room, and left a note on the counter that said, "Hope you feel better. Shelf life 4 days. Eat it." I told myself it was sweet. I told myself she meant well. I told my husband thank you. That was thoughtful of her. And he smiled the way he always smiles when she does something like that, relieved and proud at the same time, like a man who cannot see what's directly in front of him. The visit started small. A casserole here, a batch of cookies there. She'd stop by on her way to the grocery store, on her way back from church, on her way to nowhere in particular. She never texted first. She'd just appear at the door, key already in her hand, and if I didn't answer in the time it took her to decide I wasn't coming, she'd let herself in. I work from home. I'm a freelance grant writer, which means my schedule looks chaotic from the outside but has a logic to it that only I understand. I have calls with nonprofit directors at 9 in the morning, and I have grant deadlines that make me work past midnight, and I have days where I'm in my pajamas at noon because I've already been working for 5 hours. My mother-in-law saw the pajamas. She did not see the work. "Do you have plans today?" she'd ask, looking around the living room with that particular expression she had, the one that wasn't quite a frown but was definitely not neutral. "I'm working." Of course. A small pause. I just thought, since you're home you might have had a chance to, and then she'd gesture at something. The dishes. The laundry folded but not yet put away. The stack of books on the coffee table that I'd been using for research. She never finished those sentences. She didn't have to. My husband and I had a routine in the early years of our marriage that I loved. Saturday mornings, we'd sleep in, make breakfast together, take our dog Marigold to the park. Unhurried. Just the 2 of us. Until my mother-in-law started showing up on Saturday mornings. Not every week, but often enough that it stopped being a surprise and started being a held breath. Every Friday night some part of me would wonder, is tomorrow one of those Saturdays? I told my husband it bothered me. I used careful words. I said I just wanted a little more notice, that it was about having space to prepare, not about her specifically. He nodded. He said he'd talk to her. And I believe he tried, in whatever way he tried, because for a few weeks she'd text 30 minutes before arriving instead of just arriving. That was the compromise, 30 minutes. I don't know exactly when the visits shifted from intrusive to something else. It happened gradually, the way most things that damage you do. One day I noticed she was spending more time in rooms I wasn't in. She'd wander into the home office while I was in the kitchen. She'd stand in the doorway of the nursery. We don't have children yet, it's a room we use for storage, and just look at it, not saying anything. Once I caught her reading the whiteboard I keep in my office for tracking deadlines. She wasn't embarrassed. She tilted her head at it like she was studying a foreign language. "You have a lot going on," she said. "Yes," I said, "I do." She started talking to my husband differently after that, not in ways I could point to directly. Just a shift in tone when they talked on the phone, which they did every other day. She'd ask him questions I found out about later. Had he eaten? Was he sleeping okay? Was work stressful? Were things good at home? That last phrase, he mentioned it once, casually, not thinking anything of it, and I felt something cold move through me. Things good at home was not a general question. She was asking a specific one. It came into focus about a year ago. My husband came home from a work trip and he was quieter than usual. Not cold, just distant, measuring something. He made dinner, he asked about my day, but I could feel him processing something he hadn't told me yet. Finally, after we'd eaten, he said, "Mom mentioned she's been worried about you. She thinks you seem isolated." Isolated. I work alone. I choose it. I have friends I see regularly, a sister I talk to every week, a full life that doesn't happen to be visible to someone who stops by unannounced on weekday mornings. But his mother had handed him a word, isolated, and now he was holding it, turning it over, wondering if it fit. "She's been worried," he said again, as if repetition would help. "I'm not isolated," I said. "I'm a person with a job and a schedule that she doesn't understand because she's never asked about it." He said he knew. He said he believed me, but the word was already in the room. After that, I started paying closer attention. I noticed she had started bringing him things. His favorite foods from childhood, a framed photo she said she'd found while cleaning, a sweater she'd bought because she thought of him. And these things arrived at our house the way she arrived, without announcement, while I was home working. Left on the counter with a note addressed only to him. I noticed she had stopped asking me questions. Not rudely. She was never rude. She was solicitous and warm and interested in me in the way that a person is interested in a room they're deciding how to rearrange. But the questions about my work, my family, my opinions, those had quietly stopped. She'd sit at our kitchen table and talk to my husband and occasionally glance at me the way you glance at something that's slightly in your way. I noticed she took photos. I noticed this the way you notice something you don't want to understand yet. A small motion in my peripheral vision, her phone, angled at a counter with a dish in the drying rack, the laundry basket I'd left at the bottom of the stairs, Marigold's water bowl, which she'd moved twice and I'd moved back twice. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself people take photos of all kinds of things. I told myself this for about 2 months. Then my husband told me she'd asked him a question. He'd mentioned it because he thought it was funny, strange, a little odd. She asked me if we'd ever thought about me working from home. Said it might help with, I don't know, she used the word stability. He said it with a confused half-laugh. He didn't connect it to anything. I did. Stability was the second word. After isolated, she was building a vocabulary, a slow, careful set of words designed to make my husband see his wife as something fragile, unmanageable, in need of more supervision, more presence, hers. I lay awake that night for a long time, not angry, something past anger, something quieter and colder. I thought about every visit, every rearranged item, every photo I might not have imagined, every photo I might not have imagined, every word she'd planted in my husband's conversations. She wasn't trying to help me, she was trying to make me look like I needed help. I made a decision that night, a quiet one. No crying, no confrontation, no midnight text to my sister about what to do. I just decided I would stop reacting and start documenting. I would stop defending myself to the person who was attacking me and start building something she couldn't dismiss. The next morning, I ordered 2 indoor security cameras, small, discreet, positioned to cover the entryway and the kitchen, the 2 rooms she entered most. I installed a smart lock on the front door that logged every entry and allowed me to remotely manage access codes. I did not tell my husband that night. I told him a week later, casually, that I'd upgraded the security system because my laptop and work equipment were valuable. He thought it was practical. He helped me set up the app. I also started a written log. Date, time, what she said, what she moved, where she went in the house. I kept it in a password-protected document on my laptop. It felt almost paranoid to start it. By the end of the 3rd week, it was 12 pages long. And then I waited. She came by that Tuesday. I heard the key turn in the lock just before 9 in the morning. The new system beeped twice entry logged, and then the lock disengaged as normal. Her code still worked. I'd left it working on purpose. I was at my desk, headphones around my neck, coffee in hand, and I called out, "In the office," like it was any other morning. She appeared in the doorway, scanned the room. Her eyes went to the camera mounted in the upper corner of the entryway. A half-second pause. She said nothing. She moved to the kitchen. I heard her open the refrigerator. She did this every time. I used to think she was looking for something specific, but I understood now she was inventorying, and I opened my laptop log and noted the time. She came to stand in the kitchen doorway after a few minutes. "I thought I'd make some tea. Do you want any?" "No, thank you," I said. "I have a call in 20 minutes. She made her tea. She stood at the counter and looked out the window for a while. Then she said, "I noticed you put a camera up." "A couple of them," I said. "Just for security. My equipment in here is worth a lot." A pause. "Of course." She left 30 minutes later. She did not rearrange anything that morning. She did not take her phone out once. She moved through the house carefully, the way you move when you know you're being watched, which as it turned out was exactly the way she'd been moving through my house for 3 years without knowing it. 2 weeks later, my mother-in-law called a family gathering. Not called exactly. She suggested it to my husband, who suggested it to me, and by the time I heard about it, it was already half planned. His aunt and uncle from Dayton, his older brother and sister-in-law, his grandmother who was visiting from Tampa. 14 people. Sunday lunch at our house. I knew what this was. I can't tell you exactly how I knew, but I did. She had realized the cameras changed something. She needed to move before I did. And there's something clarifying about knowing that the person who's been quietly working against you has finally decided to be less quiet. I cooked for 2 days. I cleaned every room. I made 3 dishes from scratch and a dessert. I was calm in a way that surprised even me. My husband asked twice if I was okay, and I said yes, genuinely because I was. She arrived 40 minutes early. White cardigan, good earrings, a dish she brought that nobody asked for. She moved through the kitchen while I was cooking and made 3 observations about my technique in the span of 10 minutes, all of them framed as helpful. The family arrived. It was actually a decent afternoon for a long time. Her brother made me laugh twice. The grandmother told a story about her garden that went on much longer than it needed to, and I found myself genuinely engaged. The food was good. The house was clean. Everything was fine. Until it wasn't. We were almost through dessert when my mother-in-law set down her fork and said, "I want to say something, if that's okay." Her voice was measured, warm. The voice she used when she wanted to sound like the reasonable one. I've been thinking about family a lot lately, about what it means to really support each other. A pause. I know everyone is busy. I know June works very hard. She looked at me when she said it. A sympathetic look, the kind that says I'm on your side right before it doesn't. But I've had some concerns, and I think it's better to talk about things openly as a family than to let them go unsaid. She reached into her bag. I recognized the gesture, the deliberate reach, the preparation. She placed several photographs on the table, not printed, on her phone, screen up, passed around. The sink with dishes, the laundry basket, Marigold's water bowl tipped sideways. "I'm not saying anything is wrong," she said. "I just worry sometimes about the stress levels in this household, about whether everyone is coping." The table was very quiet. My husband's aunt looked at me. My brother-in-law looked at his plate. My mother-in-law continued, "Sometimes when we love someone, we have to be willing to have hard conversations for their sake." I looked at my husband. He was looking at his mother. His face had gone still. She finished with, "I just want everyone to feel like they can say something if something needs to be said." And then she looked at me, patient, waiting, wanting the reaction, wanting tears or defensiveness or anything she could turn back into a word. I folded my hands on the table. "Thank you," I said. "Actually, I've been wanting to have a conversation like this too." I took out my phone. I downloaded 23 clips from the camera system to a folder. I connected to the TV via the Bluetooth speaker we had in the living room, not a screen but a large monitor we'd set up for movie nights, and I said, "Can everyone see this okay?" The first clip, her entering through the front door without knocking at 8:14 on a Tuesday, moving directly to the kitchen. The second clip, her phone out, photographing the dishes in the drying rack. The third clip, her at my desk reading my whiteboard. The fourth clip, her opening the drawer where I kept bills and personal documents. Time-stamped, dated, clear. The room had gone from quiet to something else, something airless. My brother-in-law said quietly, "Mom." I kept my voice level. I also want to share something. I slid a folder to the center of the table. Inside was a printed summary I'd put together, my freelance income from the previous year, a letter from my doctor confirming I was in good health, a note from my therapist, who I'd been seeing voluntarily for 2 years, long before any of this, confirming that I was, in her clinical assessment, functioning well and managing stress effectively. I looked at my mother-in-law. "You've described me to my husband as isolated, unstable, struggling. I want the family to see what you've based that on." She started to speak. I was concerned. "You were documenting," I said. "There's a difference. I wasn't loud, I wasn't shaking, and I want you to understand that I've been documenting too." I slid one final page across the table. I had found it 2 days earlier while reviewing the camera footage, a phone call she'd made in my kitchen, half audible, that I'd amplified with an audio editing tool. The words, "I just think he needs to see it for himself, and it can't go on like this," were clear. My husband reached for the page. His grandmother looked at her hands. My mother-in-law said, "You don't understand what I was trying to do." "I do," I said. "That's the problem." My husband put the page down. He was quiet for a long time. Then he looked at his mother and said, "You need to tell me that's not what it looks like." She didn't say anything. Not right away, and in that silence, something in the room shifted permanently. She said finally that she had only ever wanted to look out for him, that she had seen things that worried her, that any mother would have done the same. "What things?" my husband asked. His voice was careful, the voice of someone being very deliberate about staying calm. "What specific things worried you, Mom?" "Because what I'm seeing is you coming into our home without telling us, photographing my wife's belongings, and saying things to me designed to make me doubt her. Tell me what I'm missing." She couldn't. After the family left, and they left quickly, with the awkward efficiency of people who need distance from what they witnessed, my mother-in-law sat for a moment at the table alone. My husband was in the kitchen. I was by the window with my coffee. She said to me, "I hope you're proud of yourself." I looked at her. "I'm relieved," I said. "There's a difference." She left without her dish. That night after she was gone and the house was quiet and Marigold was asleep at the foot of the bed, my husband and I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. He said he didn't know. He said he thought she was that's just how she was. He said he should have seen it. He said he was sorry. I told him the sorry I needed wasn't from him, but I appreciated it. The week after, I sent my mother-in-law a letter, not an email, a letter, printed, mailed from the post office, with a return receipt. I'd written it with a lot of care. I told her that I wanted a relationship with her, that I understood she loved her son and that love wasn't in question. But I told her clearly the key was no longer active. Visits required an invitation, minimum 48 hours in advance. Any attempt to discuss my mental health, my capabilities, or my fitness as a partner with other family members would result in me consulting a family attorney about the harassment. She did not respond for 2 weeks. When she did, it was a single text to my husband, "I need some time." My husband showed it to me. I nodded. I said that was fair. I said she could have all the time she needed, and when she was ready to move forward differently, we would be here. I didn't say it with anger. I meant it. That was 6 months ago. We have seen her 3 times since. Scheduled visits, announced in advance with a clear end time. The first one was uncomfortable. The second was better. The third, last month, dinner at a restaurant, the 4 of us, was almost normal, in the way that things can become normal after they've been broken open and reassembled. She hasn't asked to have her key back. I haven't offered. My husband still talks to her on the phone. I think that's right. I've never asked him to choose. I only asked him to see. The cameras are still up. Not because I'm watching for her specifically, just because they're there, and because there's something I didn't expect when I installed them. They changed how I feel about my own home. Not the way she changed it. Not the low-grade vigilance of wondering when the key would turn next. The cameras made me feel like the house was actually mine, like I was the one deciding what happened inside it. My whiteboard still has a grand deadline on it. Marigold's bowl is on the floor, exactly where I put it, in the spot that makes the most sense for her. Nobody has moved it. I think about the moment she walked into my kitchen that very first Tuesday after I'd installed the cameras. The way her eyes went straight to the corner of the ceiling, that half-second pause. She knew, and she said nothing, because saying something would have meant admitting she'd noticed, and admitting she'd noticed would have meant admitting she'd always been aware of exactly what she was doing. That pause told me everything I needed to know about the difference between someone who makes mistakes and someone who makes choices. For a long time, I'd been asking myself the wrong question. I kept asking why. Why would she do this? Why would she want to undermine me? Why couldn't she just be kind? But why doesn't matter as much as what you do with what's in front of you. And what was in front of me was a pattern. Documented, time-stamped, undeniable. The pattern didn't lie. It never does. I used to believe that keeping the peace was the same thing as being good, that tolerating something quietly was a form of grace. But there's a version of patience that isn't grace at all. It's just fear dressed up in polite clothes. I was afraid that if I said something, I'd be the difficult one, the oversensitive one, the one who couldn't get along. So I stayed quiet and told myself it was the high road, and meanwhile she kept walking through my door and into my life, and slowly, carefully, rewriting who I was in the story she was telling my husband. What changed wasn't my anger. I'd had plenty of that. What changed was my clarity. I stopped trying to defend myself to someone who wasn't interested in the truth and started building something that didn't need defending. That's not a small shift. It takes something real to get there, not just the will to protect yourself, but the discipline to do it without becoming someone you don't recognize. I could have confronted her early, loudly, in a way that would have given her exactly what she wanted. Instead, I waited. I learned. I prepared. And when the moment came, I was ready. June didn't win because she got angry. She won because she got honest, with herself first, then with everyone else. Honest about what was happening, honest about what she needed, honest about the fact that love and manipulation are not mutually exclusive and that you can grieve one while refusing to excuse the other. The cameras are still up. The smart lock log still runs, not out of fear, out of a quiet understanding that the home I live in is mine and that I am allowed to know what happens inside it. There's something that happens when you stop apologizing for existing in your own space. The house doesn't change, the rooms are the same, but you move through them differently, like you belong there. Because you do. Marigold's bowl is on the floor where I put it. Nobody has moved it since.